Hey, Aaron Rabinowitz here, and in this video, I want to just quickly show you the ins and outs of these models that I'm giving away for free. And there's a couple of cool things that are probably not obvious that I wanted to show you as well, and some cool animation techniques that might help you too. So anyway, I've got these free vehicles, and I want to say I didn't model them myself. I had a personal project I was going to do for the release of Tron Ares, but work got, to be the way it was. And I was always planning to give all of these models to the community. So I found an artist on Fiverr who, once I explained what I was doing, he was so easy to work with, and he just wanted this to be fun and cool and make it affordable for me to be able to share with you guys. So easy to work with. What a great guy. And I recommend him strongly if you need some 3D modeling skills, actually hard surface modeling. That's his specialty. Anyway, we worked together in the process of getting these models done. And this is for you guys now. So let me just quickly show you. We've got a folder called Material Functions, a folder called Materials, which we're going to look at. Textures, leave alone. Vehicles, this is where all the cool stuff is at. So like if I wanted to, I'm just going to select my light cycle here and take a look. We've got the light cycle classic, right? They're all in blueprints, so you can drop them in. And then if you wanted to animate them, you could, basically go over to the wheels here and animate these. These are separate, so I can rotate them on the Y axis and they rotate, right? So it's one day to do it. I could do the wheel front and I can just select it and rotate if I wanted to do that. And the way that you might do that in the sequencer is, so let's say we create a new sequence, just call it new level sequence, doesn't really matter. And we have this sequence, we take our blueprint of the light cycle and we drop it in, and then we choose which part we want to animate. So we choose, let's say, the wheel back, and then we'd set the transform for the rotate of the pitch, right? And we'd set the first frame there, then we'd go down to here and we'd set the rotation, like that. And then we'd play and we can see that it's rotating. Now there's other vehicles as well. There's the up-res version, which is kind of like the point of the story. It was supposed to be about how there's an evolution in the universe of Tron where the vehicles kind of upgrade. And I'm just going to drop this in here. That's the up-res version. It's kind of like a mix between the original light cycle and Flynn's light cycle in Tron Legacy. And leave that alone. And you can see we've also got a recognizer, like the classic recognizer. This is one that's meant to be the actual size. Like I did a little research to figure out exactly how big these were compared to like a light cycle. But we'll stick with the small one just to show it off. All right, so you can see. And I have some other materials here. Like right now, this is using like really simple materials, which is what we see in Tron. But if you wanted to have it be a little more reflective or whatever, I've created a bunch of different kinds of materials. So first, let's look at the material that's on there. I'll just select the main body here. And I'm just going to navigate to the material. And you can see that we've got one for the Recognizer Classic and different ones that we've got here. So I'm just going to go into here. And if I wanted to change the color of the lights, I might go over to the outline section right here and change these to, like, I can go to blue if I want them to be that way. So it's up to you how you want to use the materials. And they have things like, metallic. I can make things metallic. I'm going to do this to the hull. So hull metallic is up there. Hull roughness is very high. So I could make it reflective a little bit if I wanted to do that. But I actually I'm using car paint materials that I've got from the Unreal Engine car paint library. And if we go into this folder right here, under materials, there's a car paint folder. So we can go in there and I can grab the Recognizer Classic car paint one. So it's got CP. And I'll select that. And I'm just going to select all of its parts right here. And I'm just going to apply the car paint material to it. And this looks pretty good, especially if we go into path tracing, right? So I can change it from lit here to path tracing if you wanted something that looked really cool. That is some nice reflections and stuff like that. So it depends on what you want to do. I just wanted you to have that. I know it's not the classic Tron look, but I wanted you guys to have options. In the vehicles, if we go to the blueprints right here, and we go to Light Cycle Classic, I've got this one that's already got car paint materials on it. I've got the one for the up-res 2 with car paint materials on it, which is really nice. Something to check out if you want to play around with that. Now, in addition to the recognizer there, we got the classic recognizer. We've got the up-res recognizer. And we've got the tank, the classic tank right here. And it's divided. So like if we were to select this tank, for example, it has separate parts. So we could take there's the main tank and there's the turret, and the turret is set to rotate right around that axis point so that you can do exactly what they did in Tron right there. And then there's the tank upres, which is, again, similar, but it has 3 rotation points. So we've got the main part right here. We've got the main turret, which we can rotate left and right. And then we've also got a little cannon that can go up and down, based on, how you want that to rotate. Okay, let's quickly just look at some fun features of the light cycles. So right now we've got this light cycle. It's a blueprint. It's in this shot. You can just see it, and it's blinking. And that texture, you can turn off the blinking part of it. So let's just quickly jump into the material. So if I select the blueprint right here, and then I go into one of its body parts here, like the wheel back, you'll find the material. And we can go over to here, and let's just see if we can observe it. There it is blinking. If you want to just see how this kind of is laid out, it's on a UV map, and this part right here is blinking. And it's just how the UVs are laid out. So we could just go into the part that's called spokes. That's the white part of those wheels. And right now there's a blink on, and you can turn it off, and then the blinking will stop if you don't want it to blink. Or you could turn the blink on, and you can speed up that blink. Right now it's set to a period of 1 second per blink, but it's probably in the movie closer to 0.5. And in the movie, instead of the wheels turning, they kind of blink that way. Now I also have something similar for the light cycle upres, right? And so I can just drop this in here for a moment. And then with this light cycle selected, I'm just going to rotate it around so you can see. And right now it's got this blinking pattern that's happening in order of 3. And, we could just go into the material here for this, and we could go over to lighting, and you'll see that there's a blink side lights property right here. And if we turn this off, then the lights are no longer blinking. But we can also just blink the side lights, and we can set the minimum and maximum brightness of this one, and we can set the period of time. So let's say we want to set this to every 0.5 seconds, right? Let's see how that looks, if that's something you wanted to do. And also we can offset the time. Let me set this back to, let's set this to 5 seconds, right? So it's really slow. Now, the thing is, what if you have 2 light cycles that are running next to each other and you don't want them blinking exactly in sync? You can set the time offset a little bit here. And so then you'll have different beginnings and endings for that loop, so they're not synced exactly. Now, something else that's cool that's been added into this light cycle is some functionality that makes it work really well with another free giveaway that I have, which is the free light trails for Unreal Engine, which you can find at the Pixel Lab. So basically, if you want to create Tron light cycle trails, both for like the original movie and for Tron Legacy and that kind of thing, we've got different light trails, and you can just download those for free. But in any case, let me just show you how that works here. So here I've got this blueprint for this light cycle, and if I go into it, I'll just open that up and just put this to the side for a second. And then we'll go over to the folder where the light cycle trails are kept, and you'll see that there's a Niagara folder, and in there we have this one called Mask. I'm just going to use one of those. Doesn't matter which one you use for this demonstration. I'm just going to use the one called Mask, and I'm going to use this yellow one right here. Now, you don't drop this into the main project and attach it to the light cycle here. You totally could do that. You could just drop it in and position it and set it up, but I actually made it really easy so that it's part of the light cycle and that it matches exactly to the position it needs to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this right here, this light cycle trail. I'm going to drop it into the blueprint itself, and then I'm going to take this Niagara system and I'm going to make it the child of the main body. And it's important you do the main body and not the wheels, because if you attach it to the wheels, it's going to spin around, and you don't want it to do that. So here's what I'm going to do. Right now it's attached to the main body, but it doesn't know what to attach it to within that. So I've got some sockets here, and if I press this little button right here, you can see I've got a trail socket, and I attach that to the trail socket, and then I just need to reset the position so it's zeroed out, and it's right at the bottom middle of this wheel. So now if I were to compile and save, and I were to hit play, it leaves the trail behind it. Definitely watch the tutorial on how to use these trails, because there's a lot of gotchas. Like if I jump back in time, it kind of writes it backwards instead of forward. So just watch that video, which explains it all. It's really easy to use. Just need to get a couple of minutes of figuring out how some of that stuff basically is set up. All right, let me show you something else that's pretty cool and useful. And it's really not to do with my tools, but it's to use the Cinematic Car Rig Lite, which is a free rig for cars. It's super awesome. And basically it's called cinematic car rig because if you're using anything other than the chaos, animation tools, which is like dynamics, then you're going to want to animate this car, and you don't want to use dynamics, and this is a tool that makes it really possible and so easy to use. So I use cinematic car rig in tons of my work, but cinematic car rig Lite is free and offers a couple of the features and has everything we need in it for this kind of animation. So let me just quickly show you something. So once you download it and add it to your project, which I've done, instead of using the blueprints that we have with these light cycles, which you could, animate, you could just drop this in and then, you could go into the timeline and animate the wheels, by selecting the main body first or then the wheel back, and then you can just animate this over time. What you can do instead is use this cinematic car rig, which is so much easier. And so let me get rid of this here. And then I'm going to go into the cinematic car rig section right here, and you'll see there's a blueprint called BP CCR Lite that's found under cinematic car rig blueprints. I'm going to duplicate that so I don't ruin the original, and I'm going to open that up, and you'll see that there's nothing inside. Let's come back to the parts here. And so you see we've got the blueprints, but we've got this folder called parts. I'm going to jump into there, and we've got the main body. So with the BP CCR Lite active there, I'm going to bring this main body into the body mesh right there. And I'm going to pull back a little bit. And from here, you'd be tempted to add the wheels to the front wheel mesh or to the rear wheel mesh, but you don't want to do that because if we add that in, it actually creates two wheels, right? So if I go to here, side offset, then what happens is you can see that there's actually two wheels, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to clear this out. Let me just come over here and do this, go to clear. Okay. And instead, I'm going to add in some wheels into this extra wheel section. So first I'm going to take the extra wheel here, drop that in. This is it's the back wheel. And I'm going to use the left perspective to just set this up as best I can here. Just want to align this right to about there, bring it up, touching the floor just like that, something like that. I think that'll more or less work. Okay, then I want to do the same for the front wheel. So I'm just going to drag that in and make sure I put it under extra wheels. It by default tries to put it under the wheel. So let's make sure that both of these are under the extra wheels component. And I'm taking extra wheel 2, that's this front one right here. And I'm just going to do my best to align this to the center as well as I can. Now that I've done that, I can compile and I can save. And I'm going to take this blueprint that we just created here, and I'm going to drop it in here, and I'm going to show you something. If I animate this, if I were to just move this forward, you can see the wheels are both spinning. However, and this is really a bit of a pain, it's actually using the dimensions of the wheel to decide how fast it spins. That's actually the way cars work. Like if you have a small wheel and a big wheel, the small wheel will appear to rotate faster. So that creates a problem because this wheel in the front is actually smaller than the wheel in the back, so they don't match up. Well, I'm going to give you the dumbest solution that I can think of that's super easy to implement right here. And that is to come back to these parts right here. And I'm just going to take them both and drag them out right here so that they are exactly in the same position. And once I have these two objects added, I'm just going to do something a little weird here. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose create material. And for this material, I'm just going to make it invisible. I'm just going to go set this to be, instead of opaque material, we're going to go masked. And we're going to say opacity mask is set to 0. Now it's invisible. Click apply. And save it, and fine. So I'm going to apply this to this first, the big wheel right here. So now we don't see it, even though it's there. And I'm going to take these two objects, I'm going to choose actor, and then merge actors, and merge. And then I'm just going to navigate to the Tron upres folder, to the vehicles, and to the Light Cycle Classic, and I'm just going to save it in the parts here. We'll call it big wheel. Click save. And now that it's in there, if I go back into the blueprint and I go to the viewport here, I can select this front wheel, and I can either just try to place, I can either drag in that big wheel here, or I can just go over to here and type in big wheel and just replace the current one. And now it's replaced with the static mesh, that's the big wheel. If I hit compile and then I move this, they move in sync. Anyway, as always, I hope this helps you in your work. Have some fun. and show me anything cool you make with this stuff. Once again, I'm Aaron Rabinowitz, and I'll see you in the next one.